pandemic got us into a reflective space and made us look inward to see what we can do for the world at large. As a self-expression coach, I became a catalyst for women and started Vani, a one-on-one coaching program for women on finding their voice, to speak up, to be visible. As a storyteller, I spotted there were many ordinary people amongst us leading extraordinary lives, making a difference to the world, and they needed to be heard. Thus was born You and I with Rashmi Shetty, where amazing personal journeys with their uniqueness and individuality are showcased, a reaffirmation of the fact: open your eyes wider. The world is far more beautiful when we acknowledge the presence of both you and I. Our guest today is Aravindan Arumugam, an Origami Transformation Coach and the founder of Unfold Rewire 3691 system. He's on a mission to help 1 lakh adults to experience an epiphany to discovering their life's purpose using the art of paper folding. Armed with the meticulous complexities of the West and the chaotic simplicity of the East, Aravindan exchanges his ideas and techniques through workshops and masterclasses on origami, visual effects, and philosophy. Listen in as he shares his amazing life and influences that made him a filmmaker, origami artist, and a palmist too. A pleasure always, Aravindan, to have a conversation with you. A chance meeting in a webinar, and thank you so much for agreeing to be on You and I with Rashmi Shetty. Learned a lot about origami from you and loved the concept of how much is folded in a person in the way you unfolded so much for me. So a pleasure, welcome, and I'm very curious to know what little Aravindan was to the Aravindan Arumugam that the world knows today.
Thank you so much, Rashmi. Yes, lovely to be here. And okay, so let's rewind and tell you. So my dad was in the Air Force, and I was born in London. And I was there about 3 months, I think 3 months or 6 months or whatever. And so that was in the 70s, early 70s. And then they came, and since we were in the, dad was in the Air Force, we had a job which you keep getting posted to various places. So that had a fantastic effect on me. That was a fun part of making new friends and connecting to new friends every few years. Okay, so there's nothing permanent. You're not attached to something for a long time. You learn to detach and attach, and at that point of time. So dad had a huge influence on me. So he was a multifaceted person, and a lot of that thing has come into both of us. I have one elder brother, and so he's Arulmani. He's about 6 years older than me. So there's the two brothers are completely different. And although a lot of people say that we look similar, or a lot of other features which are common, but in terms of he's everything is perfect, regular, and and I'm the chaotic person.
Okay, I'm really curious, Aravindan. You carry yourself really light. Was this also something that came from the ability to attach and detach very fast? In the way you speak, in the way you connect to people, you make it very simple for communication. Was this something that you derived from the attachment, detachment attitude, where you said that because of the regular transfers, you are able to attach very fast and detach very fast?
Okay, that must be the exposure, but that must be something which I had got in my subconscious, because I'm sure there's so many people in the defense forces, and a lot of people in the semi-public sector who also have transferable jobs, but not everybody would be getting that vibe part of it. So I was always, and even today, I'm more a fun kind of a person, so I'm innovating and inventing and trying something new at every point of time, and that is an effervescent quality which I have. And so if it's not fun, I'm not doing it. It's simple as that. So it needs to be fun. Everybody needs to be fun with me. Everybody needs to play. So that's the whole thing. So there was we had a Super 8mm camera at home. So at that point of time, it was a big thing to have a movie camera. Today, people have it in the phone. So we had a movie camera at home, and Dad had filmed me. I mean, filmed the kids also, right? Besides the Charlie Chaplin. So we had the Lauren Hardy films, okay, and we had the Man on Moon and all these. And so we had a projector at home and editing table in the projector. So it was a big thing to have this whole show. The whole we used to call everybody in and have a party, and there's a movie going on at home. So in that, there's me crawling on, trying to get a magazine. Okay, so I had the same bushy, crazy hair, little baby trying to crawl and get that magazine. And the moment I come to that magazine, they'll pull it away. Okay, so in any normal baby would be crying, right? Okay, I was like, oh, what the hell is that? It's like a cat. Okay, so how did it move? Okay, so I go and get that. So that is the curiosity it's always been. So, and I kept, the whole movie was I kept going after that magazine. Okay, so it kept getting away and I kept going after it. And there was no crying. There was no, so most of my pictures are like, even childhood pictures, I'm grinning all the way.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a lovely attitude to carry. Because I think life keeps challenging us, but if you can smile back, I think life finally gives it.
Right.
So what has your childhood, schooling, and college years been like?
Okay, so so I was in school in Kendra Vidyalaya, which is connected to the defense forces most of the time. So I was in I think so sometime in Gorakhpur and Delhi, and then Avadi, and then towards the end it was Coimbatore. So most of my schooling happened in Coimbatore because my dad retired in Coimbatore. Okay, so all my, I would say 10th, 12th, and that maybe almost say some 5th onwards was from in Coimbatore. Okay, so and then also I did again my college was in Coimbatore, but that was, I would say, the fun years. Okay, so this was 89 to 92. I joined botany. Okay, so I did a BSc botany and I did a diploma in interior decoration during the weekends. Okay, so now you would say, why botany and what the hell is this and what is this connection, right? Okay, so this is how it works. So you would get a good character sketch of. I was a big rebel in the class. So if there was no application or logic to it, then I am not learning it. Okay, so this was a big problem in Sanskrit. Okay, so we had Sanskrit and they used to teach this aham, gayam, or something like that in those terms. And there's no way you're going to speak in Sanskrit. Even after learning Sanskrit all your school life, you're not going to speak or converse. So it made no sense, okay, to ratify that whole thing, right? So I failed in Sanskrit in 10th. Okay, so now, but there is a subject called SUPW. I don't know if many people know it. Yeah. It is socially useful, productful work. Okay, so basically do all the craft and all those things. So I used to score great marks. And that's because of that one, you're still pass. Even if you fail in one subject, you're still considered pass. So in my 10th, I went and saw 10 commandments before the exam. Okay, and I failed in Sanskrit. In my 12th, I saw Last Emperor before the exam. Okay, so
do they have any connection to the boards?
Sorry.
Do 10 Commandments and Last Emperor have any connection to the boards?
Yeah, it's a great film, right? How can you miss it? It's such a fantastic film. My parents, my father was a movie buff, and I said, 10 Commandments have to go. I said, okay, go. So that's how it was. And Last Emperor was the film which I saw, and I failed in maths. Okay, so the reason I failed in maths was I think 60% of the marks was the differentiation and integration, which made no sense because you have a formula and you derive. And there was a classmate of mine who could write that thing backwards. Okay, so I said, what the hell is this? Okay, you don't even have the question and you go backwards. Okay, and now the same formula I used to take it home, and my dad used to, he was a physics honors. He was also done his MBA, and a lot of college students used to come for the project and learn from him. Okay, so and on an honorary thing, lots of people used to keep coming there. So he had this FX100 calculator. So way back in 1988, it's a Casio calculator which had all the scientific stuff. So if I just type those numbers in the calculator, it gave the answer. Okay, at home. So I said, why the hell are you writing 8 steps? When you press a button, you have the answer. Okay, so again, I left 60% of marks from 100. Okay, and out of 40, I got some 32 or something. So you need to get 35 to pass. So as far as I am concerned, that's a great score. I made some 85% marks. Okay, but they considered it as a fail. Okay, but I'm still passed because of SUPW. So when I reached college, it says, okay, what do you get for this? Okay, but my biology scores are very high. So this you can get botany or zoology, and so I said, okay, give me zoology. No, you'll get only botany. I said, okay, give me botany. That's how the whole thing was. And Dad said, look, you need to do a graduation. Okay, after that, do whatever you want to do. Okay, right? And in order to join the film school, there were only 2 film schools. Okay, one was in the Film Institute Pune, which is there, and one was the Film Institute in Chennai. Okay, and these are the only film schools at the time. And for both, you needed a graduation to join the direction course. So I said, okay, so let's do this, and so it was pretty clear what I was going to do. I was going to become a filmmaker. I wanted to do direction, and that's how it was.
Okay. But what drew you to films right from the beginning? What gave you that clarity that you're going to do films, you're going to be a director? From where did that motivation come? It's not from family.
Okay, one thing was the subconscious mind of having a Super 8mm camera at home. Okay, having a DSLR and another still camera, a Yashica at home. And Daddy had a processing lab in the village. So back then, the black and white kind of and the gold tones and sepia tones. So he had the bellows camera and processing lab back in the village. He had showed us all those. So his fascination for photography and cinematography, right? And so that was one. And but more than, and my brother used to take stills. He carried it from my father. Father also used to do all these things, but I was more interested in the moving picture rather than the still image. And I saw Star Wars. And when I saw Star Wars, I was like completely fascinated by Star Wars. And then there was these kids in the Air Force who had not seen and who were just younger than me. So I'm talking about, I am in this 6th grade or something, 6th or 7th grade. And these kids must be in the 4th grade. And I am telling them the whole Star Wars epic by storytelling. And this happened, this happens in the period of the 6 months or a year with sound effects and every evening meeting, and I'm telling every single detail of this movie as the movie is running. So I became a storyteller, right? So then and there, as a kid storyteller, and bringing them into that world. Okay, so and I read about visual effects and read about George Lucas' story and Spielberg's story. Way back then, there was one huge book of industrial light and magic in Landmark. Okay, and this book was like stupidly expensive. It was also very heavy, right? So I used to go to that book. I'm not buying the book. It's very clear that I'm not buying the book in a bookstore. So I used to go and sit there in one corner and pick up and read one page. And that guy will not disturb me. He knows I'm not going to buy that book. But so that was one huge fascination which I had towards. And I also was a science. I was fascinated by anything which is magic. And yes, I also used to do magic tricks. Okay, so that was something which was there. I used to do origami. That's something which from childhood. I used to do watercolor painting, and I used to do pen and ink. I used to do the pen and pin and thread, that artwork. So, and then I was an ornithologist. When I joined botany, I joined the Nature Club and WWF, World Wildlife Fund. I got a job from Center for Environment Education, which I refused, and which was at that point of time, it was doing what people would have called a secured government job. But I got the film school, and that's how I went there. So,
like I told you right at the beginning, you come across as a very light person, and people find a lot of challenge with communication. What kept your communication so easy on you? You don't seem to
Um,
be being somebody who was very hesitant to speak your mind. You're very clear, a rebel when things didn't speak back to you. So, what was this two-way process in communication that was there in every decision of yours? Everything should speak back to you, otherwise you don't take it.
yeah, that's so clear, right? Like I find that even now, it's like I'm seeing your image, and that's why I'm able to converse. Okay, so
Yeah.
suppose you put off your camera, I'll be like, what the hell? Okay, who am I talking to, right? Okay, so I can make friends in the lift, in the elevator. Okay, so I find it extremely crazy that in an elevator there are like 5-6 people, and everybody's looking at the numbers, waiting for the numbers. Especially if it's a long lift, you're waiting for the numbers. Okay, and nobody is saying anything. Okay, so I have made friends right in the elevator. Okay, so I'm the one who will crack that thing and going, hey, what's happening? Blah blah blah. And some people get okay. So yes, so I am talkative, super talkative about what I do, and so that's easy because and so also when I'm doing counseling and stuff like that, that becomes very easy for somebody to warm up, right? The right word. So so it's an easy person. Okay, great. And then after that, you get into the subject, and when you get into the subject, I am not so funny. Okay, so I get very serious and very into details. So the guy who's funny can also get into extreme details. Okay, and like when I'm in the shooting spot or when I'm doing a particular job, I'm very, very exacting. So I'm at that point of time, I'm like, there's no compromise on quality or whatever you're doing. So that is so the job is a different thing, and or trying to get a particular target is a different thing, but being a human being is a different thing. So that's is always
very true. But this is a nice mix, Aravindan, because recently I was reading about Pablo Picasso. He was talking about how when he gets into his art space, which is around about 2 in the afternoon till about dusk when he's there, he says that I leave my physical body outside the room like Muslims leave their footwear and enter the space. So here is this creator, genius, who connects completely from the soul. And how would you see yourself in these spaces? Because origami is so much focus that thread and the paint on paper is also focus. You need to pull it at the right time and the right way to create it. So how do you balance the two?
Probably any artist or when I say artist, I'm saying a very broad term, which could be painter, musicians, dramatists. Okay, so writers. Okay, so when you're getting into a space, you need to cut off from the world, right? So and it's just you and the art form. And that art form, now this can be a short-term art where you finish that particular art form within the next 1 or 2 hours. Like, okay, so it could be let's say a quick watercolor painting, right? So the watercolor painting is something which dries, right? So it dries quickly. So you need to paint fast, and if you want to finish that art, or even in watercolor painting, there are artists who take a long time. They make huge for months together, right? So now, so whether the project is a few years or the project is a few hours, okay, they are during that time they are with it. Whoever that artist is with that particular focus. They can't be disturbed during that time, and they'll find their way. Okay, each person finds their way to get cut off with the noise. Okay, so what happens is it's like I would say like. Otherwise, there's clutter, right? There is noise. So my interpretation of this whole thing is, if when there's something which is too tiny and too simplified, extremely simple, we can't understand. Okay, so we don't understand the tiniest of things. Like when you're going into the depths of the atoms, the electrons and the quasars and stuff like that. So, and you're going more deep, we still don't know, right? We still don't know a lot when it's the tiny objects, and the tiny objects do pretty much everything. Okay, so, and if you get into the vastness of the universe and the space, you can't fathom the hugeness of this and still don't know what it is. So if you see the entropy or the complexity, when the complexity increases, it's noise. It's essentially just noise and you can't figure it out. And if you remove the entire complexity, okay, then it's too simple. There's nothing there. And that's nothingness is also very troublesome. right? So in between, we try to make sense. So anything in between, we try to make sense. Like, for example, if right now I see your image, okay, and in the screen, and it is a certain colors and certain values and certain exposure which is coming there in the form of the pixels. But if there was all the data there, it would become pretty much noise. It just becomes noise, so I can't see you or I cannot hear you, right? So at the same time, it's a super simplified, it would be just a white screen. So either way, it doesn't make sense. It just needs to make sense. And during that makes sense is what we interpret. And that becomes art form. That becomes fascinating. So we try to make sense at every point of time. We're trying to make something out. So an artist is something who's either adding something, like if a form of, say, pottery, you take clay and you add and add and add, all right? So, or you subtract. You take a wood piece and you carve out, and you make sense either way, right? So, and origami is a beautiful form where you neither add or subtract. You just transform the piece of paper. So that's in between. You still need to make sense out of it, So that's what it is.
Of all the things that you did, all the different paintings that you did, what drew you so much into origami? Because I remember seeing you first in that workshop, and the way you deftly used your fingers for me was fascinating. And this was all virtual, and still you could create an impact on, you were talking so easily, but your fingers were moving as deftly. And what you created was sheer magic with that small piece of paper. And the philosophy behind the crease and the no crease moments was what you equated to life as well, which was very deep. So for me, that entire thing, that a little seed is a piece in origami where
Right.
the tree unfolds as the years go by, was one of the most fascinating thoughts that made so much sense, because all of us in the pandemic were connected to nature. So the quickest and easiest example was nature. So where did this depth in and connection with origami and your fingers and you come into such a big play together?
Right. Okay. So origami is something, again, these books of Robert Harbin we had, again, part my dad and my brother. Okay. So they bought this. At that point of time in India, there was only books of Robert Harbin. Robert Harbin, Origami 1, 2, 3, 4. These were the only few books which are there. And then there was also Kuniko Kashahara's book. So that was a very big book. Big in the sense, a size of the book. It was like a coffee table book. Otherwise, the other ones were paperbacks. So right. So that was the first book which came. So, and since you see, your brother and your father folding, and then I got in early. So when you're catching on from their thing. So obviously you go a little faster, right? The younger generation is always faster than so my learning curve was much faster, and I got really fascinated by cracking one model called the Jackstone. Okay, so that was an impossible model at that point of time. It was like so I cracked that, and that was like, whoa, that was a crazy achievement of whatever it was. So, and once I did that, once I came into filmmaking, origami was completely gone, right? So, and somewhere in 2011, okay, I was making my film, and that's the story which I've told you, wherein every single thing came to a fantastic moment where my film stopped. My mom got into, she had 3 strokes and TB meningitis in the brain, and she was in a vegetative state. And I separated from my wife at that time, right? So, and I got her debt. There was a legal case, and every kind of thing happened. And one of the things which happened in the same year was my hand got a median nerve entrapment. So this finger was completely paralyzed. So I couldn't use the mouse. So there, when this was diagnosed, I had to go to physiotherapy every 2 months. And then my physiotherapist said, you need to do 2 hand activities, right? So, and so I said, okay, what's 2 hand activities, right? So automatically the idea of bringing back origami clicked. And then there was a huge gap. I had not been in touch, and origami had gone into some crazy spaces, and there's some huge origami masters which I showed you, so many of them. So and origami has gone into something like MIT, and it's used in huge industrial applications and scientific applications. So this completely fascinated me, and I started doing. And I was suddenly, when I was doing this, uh, friends from the film industry said, "Hey, why don't we do a workshop?" And so it was a fun thing of me just doing workshops, and that being kind of became viral. People called me for workshops all over. Okay, and this was like schools, colleges, design institutes, just gatherings of all, and then it became corporates, right? So, and then I said, okay, why are they calling me and paying me for something which is free on the net? Okay, so, and it's available in PDF. The instructions are there. There's a YouTube video. I said at one point in time, I said, you don't need to call me, just I'll direct you to the video. They still insisted on calling me. Okay, so then I was parallelly reading a lot of philosophy and doing a lot of work on that side. So, and then I did not know that I was actually connecting these things. So they were more interested in the way I connect these, using folding and unfolding, and how you fold your, how we are folded in a fixed mindset, and how you can unfold yourself into a growth mindset. So that became a whole thing. And then I formed an IP, or formed a system of coaching system using origami. So I am not a, origami master artist. What I do was connecting your mind, or using coaching with origami. So that was the first, that was a kind of an innovation. And I love to connect stuff, and I do catch a lot of things and connect stuff. So that's, and I find correlations in a lot of things here. So that's what this is.
And correlation is what makes life fascinating as well. How you're able to bring in the connects, and where people get that aha, the epiphany moments where they're like, wow, okay. So how did you find yours? Because you were into filmmaking. And at that time, you said you lost touch with origami. So when you're making those films, were you using anything now in hindsight when you're looking at it? Were you using any of all of these to put in together the story element and what you wanted to present? And when this happened and life forced you to take a step back, did you sit and connect the dots backwards, forwards? Did any of that happen?
Yes, so filmmaking is an art form where you have to know a lot of art forms, so, and you're actually, you're actually taking a slice of life and looking at life and different people's life, and then making a story, for which you need to know, one, the art of storytelling, okay, and in a visual medium which involves technology. So you need to be abreast with the latest tech and of what is happening, right? So it is knowing a lot of things, so there are, people who come from a drama school who purely work with actors and make a, story for the screen, and the people who come from design. Okay, so yeah, so that I have both the things in play in whatever I've done. So since that was there, even now, like, since I did a diploma in interior decoration, learned perspective drawing way back as a part-time thing. Now that comes into play while you understand perspectives and you understand stuff. And when you're trying to explain somebody, you draw a little storyboard and you're able to make a sketch and stuff like that. So somewhere, all that education really, you comes in, so again, the connection. So you're able to connect anything and everything. And if you're just fascinated by, just like a scientist, a curious scientist, or a curious person who's trying to connect every single thing, and you're like fascinated by those stuff. So that was, so this whole thing of connecting origami to, coaching system. So otherwise you find it's very theoretical, right? So how do you make something which is boring into a tangible form? Okay, and if you show them something, this is, oh wow, okay, like, so if a simple thing, like I just said, that a mountain fold is like climbing a mountain, okay, and imagine that as a negative thought, and the valley fold is like, you slide down that valley, okay, imagine that as a positive thought, right? So and so now the simple thing of making two mountains and valleys, okay, and then we just turn it around, turn the paper around, and then it becomes two valleys and mountains. So it's just that you change your perspective in your head, that you can make a negative thought into a positive thought. Now, if I was just to tell you that line, okay, that would be difficult. But if I made this paper in front of you and you made it with me, you're interacting. So that becomes so easy to understand, right? So that having a physical form and interpreting these things became just like you were fascinated, a lot of other people were fascinated with it. And it's also like the first thing is the kiddie thing, right? We all did it in our childhood. We made a boat or a plane or something like that. So you're straight away transported from all your inhibitions to, okay, let's have some, let's do something here.
Yeah. I'm very curious, Aravindan, what keeps that child in you alive? You're always so playful. You're always so cheerful. What helped you keep that child in you alive? Because when people deal with adults, when they're dealing with the people and talking, coaching, and philosophy, they're serious, but you're able to balance it very simply. You do it a lot more easily than a lot of us struggle to explain. So how do you keep that balance between that child coming out, playing, and saying something very deep and then going back? How do you manage that? Are you consciously aware of it, or that's who you are?
No, that is who I am. I would just, if you do the Enneagram test, I'm a number 7. Okay, 7 being 8, and 7 is somebody who's like a child, who's like a Mercurian. So so you're fascinated by every little thing. So if you see a child is fascinated, you're fascinated by a child. But a child doesn't mean a child is not an adult. You can see a child all alone concentrating on a flower for a long time. Okay, so if you leave the child alone, a child is what we interpret as adults, right? So actually there is this whole differentiation of a child and an adult is, I don't see a difference. Where is the difference? Okay, so the only difference is having a sense of responsibility or having a sense of that you need to earn money. Is that the only difference? Okay, so, or you need to be able to survive on your own. Okay, so the day you're able to survive on your own, you become an adult. Is that it? I mean, so.
No, I'm coming from the space of having worked with children as a storyteller. And since you are a storyteller, as a director, you are a storyteller of sorts, right? It's your interpretation of a story which you're giving the audience, and the audience either laps it up or rejects it. The ones in between are the critics, who are the bridges. The movies that are horrible, there are some critics who give it such great ratings, and the good movies are panned completely. And so in the midst of all of this, where does the storyteller in you as a filmmaker continue to find that urge to put out another story? What is it? You said there are many elements that come out, because I see that translating when you're doing your origami workshops as well. That storyteller is there present when you're doing the workshop, is there when you're behind the camera. But in the workshop, you're more in control as the storyteller. Behind the camera, there's somebody else who's interpreting in front of it. So do you find any connection between the two?
Yeah, see, when you're a storyteller, you are telling a story to an audience who's there. It's like, and you try to improvise and modify by the reaction of the audience. That's pretty much what you're doing when you're doing coaching as well. Okay, so you're telling something and you're getting a reaction, and there's an immediate feedback. We do that in stage, we do that in storytelling, you do that in coaching, right? So okay. Now, but in a film, it's already printed, it's done. So you can't modify it further, right? Okay, so I guess that's the only difference between the film as a story and this. Here, it's a live medium where you can interact and change. But here there's a limitation to what magic I can create. Okay, the magic is limited to what expressions and what I have. And there is you can immerse the person into the world in a little more easier way. Okay, here it would need me a certain amount of attention for you to immerse into my world. Okay, so that means in order to get you into my world when I'm live, so that I will need to do something, right? I need to bring you into that world. So I need to describe that world. And the only tool I have is my face. And the only tool I have is my maybe some tools like origami or whatever, like tools there, but it is limited. You can see the space I am in. So, but I'm suddenly taking you to another space. And once you do that, it doesn't matter what you do. Okay, it's what we call as a hook in a film making term. Within the first few minutes, you have a hook and a plot point, right? So once the person gets hooked on, okay, then they buy into your story. And then you can you can spin any yarn you want. Okay, it's fine. But if they don't buy that yarn, then it's not working. Okay, it's not working. So, and then in between, there's a leap of faith. Okay, so how much are you pulling this yarn? Okay, it might snap, right? Okay, so this happens when I'm doing origami with kids. Okay, and I'm doing origami with adults. So when I do origami with kids, there is no gyan. Okay, there's no gyan because they don't want any gyan. They don't want any philosophy or something like that, or what is the brain doing and all that. So it's purely fun and I would try, if it's younger kids, I'll try to make action origami. So action origami is when you finish the model, it will do something. Okay, right? So it'll actually move, or it'll, a frog which jumps, right? So you've seen that little frog when that's the most, it's such a simple model and it's the most fascinating model even to adults, so everybody wants to do the frog race. Okay, so that, but to an adult thing, I can use metaphor. I can just fold one paper and use it as something else, right? So, but the thing is, I need to get them hooked anyway. That, I guess, is any storyteller or anybody who is getting your attention in any form for whatever period of time. They need to tell you a particular piece, and the more personal it is, the more you get involved. If you try to be objective, it becomes it's the same thing of that that world which I told you where we were getting posted, right? So in various places, so you get detached and attached, right? So you fold and unfold. You can use any term you want, right? So you fold and unfold, or you detach and attached, or if you're saying that you get personal and you get objective, you get subjective and objective, right? So when you get subjective, it is you are into my story. You're into my world completely. But it is false. Everything in the subjective world is false, right? So the objective world is the truth, but it's so boring. It's like a simple thing, like suppose I say there's a beautiful sunset. Let's all go and see this beautiful sunset. So we go and see that sunset. It is a fascinating sight, right? So but now if you get to the objective world, technically the sun is not setting. Okay, the earth is revolving and the sun is really far away. Okay, and it just feels that the sun is moving, but the sun is actually not moving. Now this is so boring, right? Okay, so when you dissect it in the scientific form, but that is the truth. The truth is very boring. Okay, so, but if you come to the subjective form, you look at it now, it's completely false. The sun didn't set, but it's beautiful. It's a beautiful sunset. So you need to keep going. So when you talk about coaching, you need to tell them the truth, which is boring. But in order to tell them that the earth revolves, I need to first take you to the sunset. Okay, I need to show you that sunset. And wow, everybody is there. They bring their cameras, they take their selfies and all that. And then I can tell you, look, the sun doesn't set. Okay, so if I immediately start with a lecture on how big the sun is, and how big the earth is, and what the speed of the earth's rotation, how is it tilted, and the earth is actually revolving at the speed, there is no sunset. It's so boring. Everybody slept by now. so yeah.
Okay, so here I want you to just try and recall any moment where you had one of those epiphanies of life when you were working with children, and did you have any such moment with adults?
Okay, epiphany. I'm having an epiphany almost every week. Yes, so I'm getting one new idea of some crazy idea, and they are superly unique. Okay, it can be a business idea. It can be as tiny as trying to make a new stuff. Like I made like we already know what a Kanban is, right? The Kanban.
Yeah.
So I made a new thing of that you can unfold Kanban, that where you can have use origami in the Kanban. Now that's a thing which is parked and it's kept. Okay, so it would be out at some point of time. But now now when I learned the Kanban, I said, wow, this is a cool thing, but why can't we add this little element, right? So, and that became a unique idea by itself. Now it's parked and kept. Okay, so there are so many such ideas and so many such such fascination, and I'm living that every single moment. So
okay. But with your interaction with children, has there been any fascinating moment for you which you've not forgotten or which shifted your entire thought process of life itself?
it's like if you see the rural children, when I've done origami, okay, you generally think that they have never folded paper before, and they're probably struggling for day-to-day living, right? Okay, so and then you're having the same thing doing it in NCPA or somewhere where they've done craft and all that. So you find the rural children are they're able to catch the folds much faster than somebody who's privileged. So that was very fascinating that they picked up so fast. I mean, that's something which they never done before.
Okay. And
what
did you dissect? Yeah. What did you dissect to find out what is it? Is it the curiosity element? Because if they're doing it for the first time, they're far more involved.
I guess so. The curiosity would be one, and second, maybe what you call street smart of doing it, or not being afraid to fail. So even if they fail, they were ready to take the next paper and do it quick. So they didn't care about the number of times they failed. Where a person from an educated kid, okay, is like, I'm not getting it. Can you help me? So they're getting stuck more quickly than where the self-discovery is much more in a rural kid. Yeah. So.
Okay. And this stuckness that you just spoke about, I'm sure you see it a lot with adults. You, I'm sure, can decipher an attitude shift that happens when people are getting out of the stuckness, because coaching is all about getting them out of that stuckness.
Right.
So has origami worked as a metaphor for helping them to, I don't know if there's a word in English, but unstuck themselves or get themselves out of it?
Unstuck is something, I love that word, unstuck. Okay, so I use my term is unfold. Okay, so called Unfold. Yes, so using origami is also worked, and I also use, like I told you, I use connections. So my primary thing was, you've seen this model before. Okay, that's this one, right? You've seen this, which is part of the.
But now it's very good. Can you please? Yeah.
So this is the salt cellar model, and this is the model which I use in the coaching system, which is called the 3 conflicts, and it has the 6 quotients. If you unfold further, and you unfold even further, and you get the 9 intelligence, or the 9 types. Okay, right? So, and then you have 1 quest. So this is called the 3691 system, which I do. Now, part of this whole thing is, now if you see the colors, which is the red, yellow, blue. Okay, so I use the same colors, which can stick besides the fold. And the same thing I have another coaching. I'm also a palmist. I read the palm. Okay, so now I correlated the same colors or the same forms. Now the 3 conflicts are basically artha, kama, and dharma, or pathos, ethos, and logos, or satchit, ananda. Okay, so or what, how, and why. Okay, so basically you will find these 3 in many philosophies and many things. Now, if you take the same thing which is not there before, so I put it as the line of heart, line of head, and line of heart. Line of life. Right? So again, the 3 lines, the 3 primary lines, and again you connect those. You can collect those colors to the same lines. So now this is one thing which I would say, once you connect in to find the only word which I have to the source. Okay, you will find any form. You can take any form and tell this philosophy. So it doesn't matter that right now I'm having origami and I'm having palmistry, and I'm actually telling the same principle to get somebody unstuck out of it. Okay, right? So, but I could tomorrow use any other form. I could use any other form, and in a lot of ways, some of my clients have their own forms, right? Their own fascination, their own art forms, their own philosophy. So it's where that one thing which you told me about. So I'm able to connect to that form. So sometimes when it's a one-to-one, you're able to actually connect to what they are talking about, what they are fascinated. But you'll find that the principle is the same. The 3691 principle, which I've arrived at, is pretty much there in a lot of philosophies. And if you get them connected to that, then they will catch their wine, and they'll be able to climb out of wherever they are. that's what it is all about. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, this is something, this 3691 was something when you showed it in the workshop as well that I really liked. And how you connected it all was something which really made me want to get onto the platform to understand what you do. And not that I've still got it, I'm still in the process because I think it's far more deeper.
Correct.
When you start getting into it, it's at different levels.
Correct.
So, Aravindan, when it comes to the pandemic, the last 20 months, every one of us got reflective, and nature became our biggest teacher. She showed us who's the boss.
Right.
And each one has taken one lesson, definitely, yes, from the pandemic. But what have you taken from the pandemic? How has the pandemic shifted you, if at all she has?
Two things where I took the filmmaking actually stopped, and a lot of my coaching worked. And so coaching, which was actually physically happening as a meeting format, became Zoom meetings. So one thing to adapt was to be able to do origami with a camera. Okay, right. So I had two cameras, but even then, when somebody gets physically stuck on a particular model, just the folding part of it, forget the philosophies and all those metaphors and all that. But anybody, when all those happening, they still want to make that model. Everybody wants to make that model in spite of all the exercises and all that. So when they get stuck, normally they would come to me and I would show them that I could actually physically hold their model and help them there. Now that doesn't happen, right? So I need to, so the only way around is to repeat it and show it in different angles in the camera, and they have to get it, right? So yeah, so that was one. You actually feel that, oh, it's such a simple step. I wish I could just come there. Right?
Yeah.
So that was one thing which is there. So otherwise, I mean, as an individual, I didn't have an issue whatsoever. I'm very happy with my corner. Even before the pandemic, I have practiced lockdown, so that was fine. Okay, so and I did have a COVID attack myself. Okay, for 3 weeks. Yeah, so had the share of being quarantined all alone and learned to cook a little bit, I guess so, which I had not done before. So then, because your maid is not there, and then you're learning to cook and all that.
True.
Yeah, so very, very, and then a lot of people were in trouble. So, and I could see that how suddenly what I used to take for, I mean, it didn't affect me. Like I said, I think quite a few artists, they're okay to be alone, right? Okay, and be connected at the same time, right? So I have that quality of being mixing, and I can still completely be alone and be fine with that. So people were suddenly having a lot of trouble just being claustrophobic, being shut by people, and they used to get so agitated about it, and then connect and open up, tell their personal stories, and really trust telling their stories, and then wanting somebody to hear. So yes, so it's a huge thing. Yes.
Yes, and I feel the pandemic also helped in building relationships and friendships online.
Yes, right.
And though we never believed that the virtual world can be so powerful.
Yes. Yeah, so now when I talked about the palmistry thing, so I have seen more than 6,000 palms. Okay, but I have never charged anyone. So it was a fun thing. My father knew astrology, and there was only, I used to, like I said, I never liked maths, I never liked equations, but there was one book on palmistry which is visual, right? So I like that thing, and I used to practice it and tell a lot of things about people and stuff. But it's just only purely recreation. So I met this guy online in Switzerland called Brent Burning, and he is a master palmist who's done some 25,000 hands. So we did an exchange during the pandemic. Like, he saw my hand and I saw his, and he was completely blown by my system, because I use Vedic palmistry, I use chiromancy, I use circadian rhythms, and I also use that is biorhythms, and I also use the dasa system in astrology.
All of this, if somebody shows their palm, you see all of that?
Yes, I see all of that. Yes, and I also
and you can do it virtually.
Yes, I do it virtually. Everything is done virtually.
Oh my God. Okay.
So now this was all this I used to do before also. Okay, so now, but that was, some of them were live, right? So now it's easy because it's easy for you to zoom. I'm able to see the photograph. I can go to the finger and actually see that. So, and I can take my time to make my analysis. So it was good. So when I did this, he was so fascinated that he said, "This is brilliant. You should do this as a practice." I said, "Who's going to pay me?" Okay, so he said, "You need to charge $150." And and I slashed that rate down by almost 3 times. I started off, and suddenly I got like 20, 30 clients, all just because I just announced it. So through WhatsApp, not even web. I still don't have a website for the origami. I still don't have a website for the
palm reading.
for the palm reading. It's just organic and people. And also now it started a new profession, altogether. So everything sitting in that happened virtually, right? How would I know a person sitting in Switzerland and he was my Facebook friend, and we became very close friends. So
oh my God. Okay.
That, yeah.
And I don't think everybody who knows you do this, because you don't talk about this during origami.
Yeah, so basically, see, the origami part of it. You probably don't know my filmmaking part of it. I mean, a little bit.
Yeah.
Unless people know me only as a filmmaker. And so in the filmmaking itself, some people know me as a director, some people know me as a visual effects supervisor, a motion control camera operator, or a projection technologist. So there each sector knows something of me. I leave it at that. Okay, when they get to know me, they can know the other part of it. A lot of people, after I started charging and became professional, said, "You never told me about this." I said, "Okay, now there's a price."
Okay, recently using origami, you've even gone to film sets. So can you tell us that journey?
Oh, yes, there was a production where there's a production designer. We can't really, since the film is not out, I can't really name.
That's okay.
So, yes, so basically the production designer wanted a statue in the middle to be covered with a huge, massive pillar. And so he could have done it the traditional way. And then he said, let's do something using origami. So there was an architect. He's also an fellow origami artist and architect, Ankon Mitra, and the production designer is Shukant Panigiri. So we connected. We are all collaborated, and we got this whole thing with polyurethane sheets, designed the whole thing, and then got the whole thing laser cut, and then transported it from Delhi. And then we assembled the whole thing in 5 days. So this was like one crazy exercise. And then lighting design on that. So it became a light sculpture. And it's a wonderful piece in a song. Until obviously the film is out.
Yeah. But was this something that you ever thought will be possible sometime? Were you using origami figurines in your movies as well while you were directing?
Yes, I have. I've done. I mean, I've had one of my characters do origami in my own feature film, and also like one of the ad films, they called me for a Big Bazaar commercial. I think so. They wanted a towel to be folded, so a cloth to be folded and look like a man. So they called me. They got to know that I am an origami expert and I'm the filmmaking side. So that's where. And then there was one movie where there was a child who is autistic but does does origami. So they wanted some models to be shipped. So that's something. So I've done that in small form as art. But this was a huge thing, and with Ankon he's an artist, does a lot of these parametric models and stuff. So yes, so that was a good connection, good collaboration, and worked really good. Yes.
Okay. And as a movie maker, what are some of the languages that you did films in, Aravindan?
Mostly I'm known for visual effects. So in 99-2000, I did Alai Paide, which is Maniratham's Satyan's original version.
Yes, I know.
There was an accident shot, so that was entirely supervised, and I did the visual effects supervision and the effects for that. Now that was a 5-second shot, which took about 4 months to deliver at that time, and it was first of its kind in India for that level of work. So very realistic and lots of layers, which was shot and handled in SGI computers. So that was my step when I was in Chennai. And then I'd worked with Priyadarshan, and then I came to Bombay. Then I did a lot of motion control work, and that was and visual effects supervision in then. So there was Mujhse Shaadi Karenge, Gayab, Life at Aisi, Naina, lots of these films. And latest films were like I was there in motion control in Tanaji. I was there in Saho, and lots of ad commercials, doing the motion control operation as well as visual effects supervision for a lot of films. Then I directed my own feature, which has not come out yet, and I've directed ad commercials and corporate films. Then I got into also a technology called projection mapping, where I've done 6 projection mapping shows, which are sound and light shows, where we project on 3D surfaces. We project on large buildings. So right now I'm doing a water screen projection, which is a huge blade of water, and you project on that. So these projection mapping things, they take a long time to finish. These are very long projects. So a lot of tech involved in a lot of these things.
And did the pandemic stop any of this, or did it propel your focus on getting it done because it was more technology? So was AI, CG, and all that used for all of this?
No. During the pandemic, everything came to a standstill. The entire film industry or any event industry, any of this was completely, because it's the lockdown, everything was banned. I mean, and if there's no audience, there's no sound and light shows. That's done. And shooting gatherings and all this requires a lot of crowd, a lot of technical people. So we had limitations on. So initially they opened up with a small number, and then we had the second wave, and again there was an issue. Now we are completely opened up, but there is precaution about the third wave, which is there. So film industry and event industry was hugely hit during this time. So my focus mostly was on the coaching and that which was going on. Origami and all that.
So it opened another side of you for you.
Right, yes.
As we are leaving, 3 life lessons, Aravindan, because your life seems to have had so many different dimensions, and I'm sure you have a lot more, but 3 life lessons that you'd like to leave us with.
Life lessons, that's a big term to think of. Okay, so I would say just be as fascinated as a child, or be as fascinated as a cat. Okay, so I think it's the simplest example of how you can be. If you can observe these two of being a cat or a simple example, like a cat is like, you take a thread and the cat is doing this, and it's like a kitten or a cat is immediately, and it gets bored of that thread in maybe 30 seconds. After 30 seconds, you put the same thread again, and it's like, whoa, yes, it's super fascinating. So it's like, and at the same time, when it needs to hunt, it does a fantastic stealth strategy, and there's a kill, right? So it's a completely biological process to make the hunt. And most of the time it's sleeping. So all you got to do is this. Everything in life will fall in place. So when you need to do something where you need to achieve a goal, then you need to have a proper strategy like that cat. And otherwise you need to be curiously observing every single thing which is happening, because everything is fascinating. Anything as boring as a thread to somebody else, which you would call boring, to the cat, it's not. It's always fascinating. And whether cat or the kid, I'm saying exactly the same thing, right? And so those two are done. Otherwise, life is very peaceful. Why don't you just sleep, right? So those are 3 lessons. Be curious. So be curious and be exacting in the job which you got to do. And the third is take it easy.
This is nice. Be curious and take it easy. But thank you so very much, Aravindan, for your time. Appreciate you being so candid in yourself, like you always are. And it's so amazing to see somebody so multidimensional. And like I started, I end with it, carrying yourself so very lightly. Very rarely do you find somebody who's done so much and carries yourself so lightly. Thank you for being you. And
thank you for calling me here, making me special, for just being normal and just being curious and making me special, bringing me a spotlight. It's like a cat coming and winning the Oscars.
Such a pleasure this conversation has been with you and I and Rashmi Shetty. Thank you so much, Aravindan, for your time and sharing your life. All the very best.
With that, we come to the end of this weekly quest of You and I with Rashmi Shetty. Do let us know if you know people who make the world beautiful. Write in to rashmi.thethirdeye@gmail.com. That is rashmi.thethird eye@gmail.com. Come, let's explore this amazing world together, both you and I.